Let me tell you about one of the wildest hijackings in modern history. A group of Somali pirates in nothing but a tiny boat with rifles managed to hijack a supertanker the size of an aircraft carrier. The tanker was loaded with 2 million barrels of oil worth over $100 million. And when it was all over, some of the pirates drowned, not in battle, but with stacks of wet ransom money in their pockets. This is a story of when Somali pirates hijacked MV Sirius Star, a hijacking so bold it forced the entire world to rethink maritime security and showed what happens when desperation meets opportunity on the high seas. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind to Somalia in 1991. When President Siad Barre's government fell, Somalia descended into chaos. With no stable government or coast guard, Somalia's enormous coastline, the longest in mainland Africa, was left unprotected. Now, here's the thing. Somalia has the longest coastline on mainland Africa, and once it was unprotected, it became open season. Foreign trawlers from Europe, Asia and beyond trawled these waters at will, ripping through local fish stocks while dumping toxic waste with impunity. Estimates from the United Nations say up to $300 million worth of seafood was being hauled out each year, leaving Somali crews with empty nets and shrinking catches. Anger boiled over when some of these big rig trawler skippers didn't stop at stealing fish. There were stories of Somali boats being rammed, gear destroyed, and even fishermen disappearing. So what did the Somali fishermen do? At first they tried to protect their waters, but eventually they realized there was more money in piracy than in fishing. A lot more money. By the early 2000s, piracy in Somalia had become a highly organized and profitable industry. Equipped with GPS technology, satellite phones and automatic weapons, pirates conducted coordinated and effective attacks. Some Somali clan members in Western nations procured their pirate cousins satellite phones, GPS devices and computers, and also provided cash advances, all in exchange for a percentage of the ransom. As long as Somali pirates didn't engage in needless violence upon seizing a ship, took good care of the ships, and treated the crews well, most ship owners paid the ransom after a few months of haggling. The World Bank estimates that Somali pirates received more than $400 million in ransom payments between 2005 and 2012. Their tactics were smart. They would use a big fishing boat as a mothership, hang out far off the coast, and then launch small speedboats when they spotted a target. These little boats could catch up to big tankers and they had ladders to climb on board. Ships tried to fight back with barbed wire and water cannons. Wealthier vessels even hired armed guards, while others chose to sail all the way around the Cape of Good Hope. That longer route cost more fuel, raised insurance fees, and added days to each trip. Well, even with these defenses, pirates kept targeting every ship they could reach. This allowed them to build up their tactical networks and whetted their appetite for bigger spoils. And then in 2008, pirates targeted their most daring prize yet. In November 2008, the MV Sirius Star, a giant Saudi-owned supertank carrying 2 million barrels of oil worth over $100 million, was sailing far off Kenya's coast. This was farther than any pirate had ever dared go before. Classed as a very large crude carrier, MV Sirius Star, owned by Saudi oil company Aramco, is one of the biggest ships to sail the seas. It is 330 meters long, or 1,000 feet long, about the length of an aircraft carrier, and can carry about 2 million barrels of oil. And so the attack made Sirius Star the largest vessel ever to be hijacked. The Somali pirates hijacked this very large crude carrier at about 10 a.m. on Saturday, 15 November, while she was southbound, about 830 kilometers southeast of the coast of Kenya. As I alluded to earlier, at the time, this was the farthest out to sea Somali pirates had struck. Most hijackings beforehand had occurred closer to Somali waters, usually 50 miles out at most, or in the nearby Gulf of Aden. Reports say the pirates spent 3 to 4 days at sea before they had even reached MV Sirius Star. That long journey showed they could strike far from home and plan every detail in advance. At the time of the attack, the tanker was heading from Saudi Arabia to the United States, sailing the long route around the Cape of Good Hope. So here's how the hijacking went down. A tiny wooden skiff carrying a handful of Somali pirates closed in on the massive tanker. In one swift move, they fired no shots but used grappling hooks, ropes and ladders to climb aboard and seize control. The trick here was that the tanker's low freeboard, which is the distance from the water to its main deck, was only 9 meters when fully loaded. That made it surprisingly very easy to bridge the gap with their boarding gear. Second Officer James Grady later testified that from the first sighting to complete takeover, it took the pirates just about 7 minutes. The pirates had struck on a stretch of ocean everyone thought was safe, catching the crew completely off guard. Once the pirates had the decks under control, they rounded up all 25 crew members on board and held them as hostages. Unsurprisingly, the ship's crew offered no resistance. An unspoken rule at sea dictates that compliance is the best way to stay alive when outgunned. With the crew now subdued, the pirates navigated their enormous prize back towards Somalia, eventually anchoring off Haradere, a village already infamous as a pirate stronghold. For the next 55 days, the hostages stayed confined to a single room, safe from harm but cut off from the outside world. All the while, the ship's operator never lost touch, carefully negotiating behind the scenes to secure the crew's eventual unharmed release. Now, even as the crew waited in that cramped cabin, word of the hijacking reverberated around the globe. Oil prices jumped overnight, insurance rates shot sky high, and naval task forces from Europe to Asia turned their compasses towards the Gulf of Aden. As you have probably guessed by now, at some point during the whole ordeal, the pirates began bargaining for ransom. They began the bargain with an eye-watering demand of $25 million. Behind a veil of satellite calls and cautious back and forth, the figure slowly came down. In January 2009, a small plane appeared above the deck, dropping a satchel of cash totaling $3 million, and with that exchange, the 55-day standoff finally came to an end. With cash in hand, the pirates left the ship peacefully, but shortly afterward, tragedy struck. One of their boats capsized in the rough seas, drowning at least 5 pirates. One pirate was later found washed ashore with $153,000 in his pockets. This man had drowned while in possession of the money he had risked everything to get. After the Sirius Star hijacking, the world changed how it fought piracy. Countries set up more naval patrols, tightened ship security, and saw that many pirates acted out of desperation. By 2011, piracy seemed unstoppable. Somali pirates launched 212 attacks from their coast into the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean. That year, the World Bank estimated piracy cost the global economy about $18 billion. Then all of a sudden, the threat vanished. In 2012, attacks dropped to just 10. From 2013 to 2023, only 2 ships were seized. The drop was one of the fastest turnarounds in modern maritime history. 3 main factors made this possible. Firstly, pirates had attacked vessels linked to all 5 United Nations Security Council members and major shipping companies. This drew in many nations. France led initial naval missions, the United States built a full strategy, and 18 NATO or European Union states, alongside China and Russia, sent warships. Secondly, the United States formed the Contact Group on Somali Piracy. This group brought together governments, the shipping industry, and non-governmental organizations into working teams that shared expertise and resources to fight piracy. And finally, Somalia's federal government and member states joined the effort. They allowed foreign navies to operate in Somali waters and on land, and they helped build and run donor-funded pirate prisons. Together, these steps broke the cycle of piracy. Don't forget to like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been Tatenda for African Biographics. Until next time, cheers. Have a good one.